How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours with Brian Alvarez talking pro wrestling. We're also going to be having Superstar Billy Graham on in about a half an hour. We'll be talking to him about his book and about his career, and you can join in talking to him at 1-877-392-3299. We'll also be trying to catch up on some emails today and talking about the latest wrestling news. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
I can't hear Brian very well.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, I hear you better now. Okay.
Okay.
Brian, I guess we'll start talking about Smackdown. What were your thoughts on the show?
I thought it was one of those shows where the first hour was really good and it kind of went downhill from there. I thought the opener was great, and actually part of me thought that Matt Hardy versus Eddie Guerrero was even better. I really liked that match. Real good singles match. Matt won the European title, and I pretty much talked about it on Tuesday. It's like one of those things where so much booking at the last minute, you know, the whole pay-per-view got changed around, and they even did the angle with Regal, Edge, and Christian basically rebooking the pay-per-view as part of an angle. And I'm not actually sure. The one thing I thought was, where does that leave Edge? He doesn't appear to have a match now, but I guess they'll probably give him something on Heat or something like that. But overall, I thought those two matches were really good, and then it just kind of went downhill from there. Lots of really long video packages, which the fast-forward button helped me with. But I don't know. I can't imagine watching the show, you know, live and having to sit through all those video packages, because it's one of those things where even watching them in fast-forward, they just take forever.
It didn't seem like they had... Yeah, I sensed the same thing. You know, and I ended up watching it on tape as well and hit the fast forward through most of those video packages. I mean, they gave the first match, they gave a little over 10 minutes. They gave almost 11 minutes to the first match, which is totally unusual. And it's pretty clear that they reacted to the criticism from the night before when they only gave those same four guys 2 minutes. And it was like, man, we blew it, and we're going to rectify it. And they had a hell of a match. And, you know, Matt Hardy... I like the tag match a lot more than the Matt Hardy-Eddie Guerrero match, but I did think they were both very good matches. And, yeah, I'd say the show faded, and certainly like at the end, the last half an hour, I don't know. I mean, to me, after the first two matches, the most entertaining thing on the show was that thing with Grandmaster Sexay and Steve Blackman. I thought that was a riot. I mean, and you know, I don't know. What did you think of that?
Did you like it? I mean, it was kind of funny, but I don't know. It didn't do much for me.
I don't know, just Blackman and those girls, and I don't know, you know, trying to, you know, I think one of the things I found so funny about it was that, you know, this Chains of Love, they've advertised it like crazy.
It's a cheap way to try and promote a show that's doing horribly.
Right, but they advertise like crazy to the wrestling audience, you know, figuring like, you know, this is a show that the wrestling audience is going to watch, kind of like, you know, they did with the XFL, and the show, and they advertised it like crazy. I mean, I saw magazine ads, TV ads, like, for that show, and then the show shows up and bombs. And so they're trying, okay, we've got to, you know, it's kind of like now we've got to play catch up. We've got to rebuild this show. So the best thing we're going to do is we're going to ask our friends at the WWF, please do a skit based on Chains of Love. So they were, I'm assuming that they were kind of told to do that, and they actually came up with something. You know, normally when you do that, it's so stupid and so bad. And I just thought that they pulled it off about as funny as you possibly could, given the limitations that you were given. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no main event. The show did a 3.7 rating, which ties its low for the year. That'd be like 2 in the last 3 weeks, right? Because the Triple H Jeff Hardy was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay, so they've had 2 3.7s in the last 3 weeks. They had very, very tough competition, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Still a 3.7. I mean, you can blame your competition. I mean, they've had tough competition since February. And, last show before pay-per-view, I'm not that interested in the pay-per-view. It's still, you know, obviously with Kurt Angle and Benoit going 30 minutes, it could be a very good pay-per-view. Main event, you know, I mean, they're not going to have a bad match or anything like that. I don't think they're going to be doing 4.5-star main event like they've done in the past, but, you know.
It's just one of those matches where you look at it as like a Raw or a Smackdown main event. You know, why is it headlining a pay-per-view? And, you know, I was watching the show last night, and it's not like Kane is bad, and it's not like Undertaker is bad. You know, it's not like he's bad or anything like that. I mean, he's not as great as some of the guys they have up there, but it's just something about the fact that we've seen these guys for so long. I mean, Undertaker's gimmick is a decade of destruction. He's been around 10 years, and he's still headlining pay-per-views when there's so many really good, great young guys underneath that, you know, I don't mind it so much for this pay-per-view, but they gotta start moving forward and bringing guys up. I think we said that
every show.
On every show.
You know, the one thing. I mean,
now,
when it comes to this thing of bringing guys up and everything, you know, Undertaker gets a big pop, and he's a superstar to the fans. So it's not like I say that the Undertaker should be moved down. I think he should be in a certain position, which is that position kind of near the top, as kind of like the legend, and maybe even headline 1 or 2 pay-per-views a year. But he shouldn't be the guy who the young guys job to. I mean, he should be the guy who, when he faces the young guys, he should be putting them over. But his name is so strong that he can do 4 or 5 jobs during the year and still get one big win on a pay-per-view and then challenge for the title. I mean, there's a way of doing this where you're constantly elevating new guys. You don't kill your top guy, but, you know, they do jobs to the younger guys at the same time. I mean, I think that you know, even with New Japan, with Riki Choshu, as booker and everything like that, he's done a good job because he's done so many jobs for people all year, but he's also won key matches at times. And whenever there's a match where you kind of need Riki Choshu in some like match with, whether it's interpromotional or something like that, he's still Riki Choshu. They haven't beaten him and they haven't killed him, but, you know, he puts over Kojima and Tenzan and those guys in tag matches and you know, helps elevate the guys. And whereas Undertaker and Triple H, you know, I mean, not that Triple H is old, because he's not, but it's one of those things where, you know, they can lose 3-4 times and they're still going to be top. And, you know, anyway. I don't know what else to say
I was
about
just
that.
reading through the feedback last night, and I mean, there's so many people that, I mean, they don't really understand the way that I'm trying to put it over on the website as what Hunter needs to do. I mean, I have absolutely nothing against Hunter being, you know, a top guy and a main eventer and, you know, working the top match on the show and beating guys and being world champion. I have no problem with that. He's a great worker. But there's no reason he can't do a job every now and then and help put another guy over. The whole thing with Jeff Hardy... It made me so mad. It's just like, why couldn't you have done something on this day for this guy?
Well, it's not even the job. It's not even the job. I didn't mind him beating Jeff Hardy. I minded
just the way it was
Jeff
done,
was
the way he treated the guy.
Yeah, the way he treated him. You know. So I will say one thing. I was reading the feedback and everything. One thing that I do disagree with you on, because I talked to a lot of guys there. Believe me, nobody publicly is going to come on this show or go on the internet and say, because it's suicide. It's suicide to complain about booking in WWF. I mean, if you're a wrestler, I mean, it just, you don't do it. The guys are smart enough. They're not going to do it. Privately, those guys, you know, not all of them, but a lot of them, you know, everyone knows the game. It's not that it's not like they don't see it. They see it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just that, you know, what are you going to do? Go on, what are you going to do? Do an internet thing? Go, you know, Hunter's keeping me down. It's like, you know, you know what happens to you then? You know, then you're going to be down forever. And then everyone knows it. Everyone knows how it's played. You know, you don't complain. You don't complain in that company too publicly about much of anything, or if you do, you're going to end up, especially now, you just don't do it.
Yeah.
Let me just see. There's over in Japan, All Japan and New Japan are actually, after killing the feud, they are now trying to draw with the feud. I love that. They're June the 6th and June the 8th. Both companies are going to be running Budokan shows based on the promotion versus promotion gimmick. On June the 6th, New Japan's going to be doing a best of 5. All Japan, New Japan. Some of the matches sound pretty good, and some of them don't. It's Toshiaki Kawada against Satoshi Kojima, which will be their first ever singles match, and that'll probably be a hell of a match. Mike Barton against Manabu Nakanishi. This is going to be so bad.
Boy.
Mitsuya Nagai against Takashi Iizuka. It'll be all right. Kakihara against Minoru Tanaka may be a hell of a match, and Masafuji against El Samurai. So it's best of 5, and then 2 nights later, All Japan's going to be running Budokan with Tenryu and Keiji Muto for the Triple Crown, Taoki and Johnny Smith defending the All Japan World Tag Team titles against Nakanishi and Yutaka Yoshie, which, I mean, it's promotion versus promotion, so I guess it's okay, and I guess they put Yoshie in there because, you know, someone's got to do the job, I guess. I would be surprised if they win. And then they're also going to have an Asian Tag Team title match with Yuji Nagata and Shinya Makabe, who actually should make for a good match, against an All Japan representative, which will be decided in in about a month. And then also Kawada against Tenzan, and Steve Williams, and Mike Rotundo against Hiro Saito and Satoshi Kojima. They also announced the, I guess it's the brackets, not the brackets, but the groups for the Super Junior tournament, which will take place May the 18th through June the 4th in New Japan. One tournament, and the rules of the tournament is that everyone in the block wrestles each other, so there's 6 guys in each block, so there's going to be 5 matches, which means that everyone's going to be like 3-2, and they're going to have to do playoffs and things like that. But one group is going to be Jushin Liger, El Samurai, Silver King, Chris Candido, Grand Naniwa, and Wataru Inoue. And the other group will be Minoru Tanaka, Akira, Dr. Wagner Jr., Shocker, Shinya Makabe, and Katsuyori Shibata, which is actually a pretty damn good block. And then the two winners face June 4th in Osaka for the championship. And Kendo Kashin is out of the tournament because they want him to take time off to train for Ryan Gracie.
He better take a lot of time off.
He's going to be taking a lot of time off after the fight, too, I got a feeling. Not a good idea. Anything on the Stern thing this morning? I mean, they were at WWF New York. They had the boxing match. I could just imagine what a boxing match with two out-of-shape guys for 5 rounds must look like.
Yeah.
But Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H was there. Steve Austin was there. Iron Sheik was there, I guess, cutting nonsensical promos.
Wow.
What else did you hear about that thing? Or did you hear anything?
That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Just that it aired on like the big, like on the Times Square Dealey Bob or something like that.
Yeah, the big screen, which is actually right by the studios. Yeah, it's good exposure because there's a zillion people walking around that part of Manhattan any time of the day or night. And it's now, when does it air on television? I think does it air tonight or tomorrow? I think maybe tomorrow night.
Saturday.
What? It airs tomorrow night.
It goes on Saturday on the Howard Stern radio show.
Okay, so that's the deal. And there's something else going on Saturday. There's a television thing. No, that's not it. No, the Lionel Tate thing's on Monday, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Court TV.
Okay. Any other news before we start on the emails?
That's about it.
Okay. Of course,
did you ever see Vince on Howard Stern?
Well, that was the TV show that was wasn't that the radio show from a long time ago?
I just got a tape of it the other day and I haven't watched it yet. But
no,
have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but it was the radio interview that he did several weeks ago.
Okay.
So it's not anything. It's not like there's anything new.
Nothing groundbreaking.
No, Howard talks to him. He gives him like really bad ideas of what to do for the XFL.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
And Vince acts like they're good ideas, things like that.
Wasn't that the Survivor XFL idea?
Yes, that was the Survivor XFL idea. Yeah. Okay. And Vince goes, "Hey, that sounds like a good idea." It's like, well, I guess he has to say that because he wants to be back on the show at some point. That's the one thing that, like, when I've been on shows and someone says that stuff, and I just like criticize the host, and I should think better and just go, you know what? I just will never be on the show again.
Who had the idea about the holes in the field where people would jump out of and go after the players? Like there were foxholes in the field or something like that. Someone came up with that idea. I can't remember who that was. Sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, that's not a good one either. What was it? I was on a radio show this morning and in Sacramento, and this was quite bizarre. It was mainly a comedy show, and it's like the Mancast show. Nothing said on that show is meant to be taken seriously. However, with the host of the show, no, I didn't say anything stupid. Don't worry. I'm not. But the host of the show was in Syracuse, New York, in the bar the night of the incident with Shawn Michaels, and he gave me a description of it. What?
How about that? What did he say?
Yeah. He said that 3 wrestlers were really lit up and making a scene, and despite what came out on television, the fight involved 3 military guys and not 9. So, which actually, you've heard that one before too, because I remember the first time.
a long time ago.
I heard that was reading it in your newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from one of the guys involved in it, as I recall. Not on the wrestler side. Now, I heard from the guys on the wrestler side.
The wrestler side is going to grow through the years.
Yeah, it was 9 to 11 at some point.
90-men attacked a sleeping Shawn Michaels.
Smashed his head against the door, and nothing had happened in the bar, and anyway.
Still, if anybody wants to say anything negative about Shawn Michaels, just look at the Ken Shamrock story with 2 men.
Oh, no.
There's really no disgrace in being beaten up by 3 military guys. It's 3 guys to 1.
Well, I heard it was only 1 guy, and the other 2 were.
Plus, Michaels was drunk.
Wasn't he passed out?
Didn't they say he was asleep in the car and they dragged him out or something like that?
Well, they opened the door, smashed his head in the door, which doesn't help, and then they pounded him.
Yeah.
Hey, let's face it. When you're asleep, and the other guy gets the first punch in, you're not always not too many guys are going to get comebacks from that one.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I mean it's not like we're trying to say he's not tough or anything like that. Let's see. Let's go to some emails here. This is from Kenny, who goes, I was wondering your opinion on some of the promotions in Japan, like Torium and Michinoku Pro and Big Japan. I enjoy Toriuman a lot. Michinoku Pro, I used to really like a lot. Now, I don't know. Sometimes it's really good, but it's okay. It's Lucha Libre style. They're both Lucha Libre style. Toriuman, the guys are younger, newer, and crisper overall, I think. Big Japan is, total garbage style. But it's worked for them ever since the CZW deal because their crowds are up. I mean, I watch the Samurai TV News, and you can see like the real crowds. And they get several hundred people at these shows, and the crowds are very into the shows that they get. With the gruesome stuff, but that's where all that stuff with the fluorescent light tubing comes in, and I guess I understand it, but I don't really want to understand it.
I'm glad you do.
No, I understand why the guys do it, because guys will go to any lengths to be stars and do it, or some guys will, obviously, and entertain the audience, but in a million years, I would never do stuff like that. I think it's completely stupid. Some of that stuff I saw in the last CCW, it's just like, when I watch it, it doesn't get me mad. It gets me so ungodly sad watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, watching these guys, do this for perceived glory that all those fans, when they go home, they really don't care about it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like watching
you just see so
mutilation.
many of it that you just, first off, you get desensitized to it, and then second off, when there's, when you get hit when you hit by a light tube or a chair or something 50,000 times during a match, all people remember is that guy got hit many times. It's not like you build up for something like, the whole thing with Mick Foley that a lot of guys understand is Mick Foley didn't just, kill himself, throughout the match. It was like he set everything up. Everything he did had a purpose.
He didn't take, but he probably did too much too, I think.
He did too much, but if he was going to take a bump on the thumbtacks, there was a point to it. It wasn't like he was thrown out of the ring and he took a bump on thumbtacks and came back in and, did this or that.
Yeah. Even in the old Japanese matches that I remember watching when this stuff sort of got popular in the early 90s, where they would be like the barbed wire and things like that. They really built falling into that barbed wire. Like they would have these things where, you would tease going into the barbed wire for like 8 minutes and nobody would touch it. And then finally somebody hits the barbed wire and the explosions go off. And,
and it became memorable.
And, hey, the original stuff, like, Onita Terry Funk. Onita Terry Funk was a legendary match at the time. But, once you've seen it so much, it's like, and then these guys that you don't know are doing it and they're doing so much of it that, then they're not building to the one thing. It, obviously it doesn't draw what it did at the beginning. Well, and everything's going to be like that. The first time is always the biggest. I remember hearing Shawn Michaels wrestled about a year ago in the TWA. How did his body, and particularly his back, hold up after the match? He didn't take any bumps, did he, Brian? From what you heard in that match?
No major bumps. I think he took a couple of rolling falls or something like that.
He held up okay though. We didn't hear of him being,
Wasn't the biggest thing like an elbow off the ladder?
Yeah. Doing a lot of reading about Johnny Valentine in the last couple of days. Very, very unique, scary individual from most accounts. And I tell you, the one thing, when all was said and done, especially from talking to a lot of guys in the last few days, the business has changed. And a lot of guys are making a lot of money now. And guys like Valentine, they made very good money for the time. Compared to what other athletes made. It wasn't, but, when in other sports, when you're done, if you were at least a star, they have pensions and things like this. And this business, boy, this business is not kind to older wrestlers. Mm-hmm. If you ever go to a Cauliflower Alley, and there are guys that have been wrestling. Ray Stern, who Red Bastien talked about the other day. They ended up being a multimillionaire in aviation. But a lot of tragic stories and a lot of guys. The one thing, and you brought this up before, Brian, is if you're around a lot of the older wrestlers, and not all of them, because there are some wrestlers in their 60s that are in great shape, physically, still work out and everything. But a lot of them, their knees and their hips and things like that are really shot, and those guys did nothing. Nothing compared to what the guys today do as far as taking, the bumps. They did longer matches and they, did a lot more mat wrestling. But, as far as like the big percussion movements and, falling off the top ropes, it was primitive. You know, I mean, Ray Stevens that everyone talks about, the thing that made him so famous was he would come off the top ropes, you know, once a match for the finish. I mean, you know, that's routine, and that was with a, you know, a knee drop. That wasn't, you know, a moonsault that's crashing on both knees and, you know, for, you know, doing it twice a match or once a match for 20 years type of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, just look at, I just look at guys like Muto, you know. What's that guy going to look like?
Oh, my God. All those 50? Japanese guys that are in their late 30s that were stars, Muto, Chono, they're in such rough shape. Misawa.
Yeah, the first time I really noticed it, I've talked about this like many times.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, the end of Wrestling with Shadows when Stu Hart's walking up a hill. He could barely get up the hill. And I'm thinking, you know, when did Stu Hart go through a stack of tables? When did Stu Hart do a moonsault? When did Stu Hart do any of this stuff? Take a, you know, stiff chair shot to the head every match? Never.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. This is from Sandeep, who says, how are most people referred to backstage? Would people call Shawn Michaels Shawn, or would they call him Michael, since his real name is Michael? Actually, they would, almost everyone, I think with no exceptions, would call him Shawn. We've talked about this before. Generally speaking, most of the time, when you talk to guys, in wrestling, they kind of morph into their wrestling name as opposed to their, you know, real name. Some not in every case, but in a lot of cases. Let's see. What has happened to a lot of the guys from World Class, like Mark Lawrence, Bill Mercer, and Bronco Lubitsch? Bill Mercer, I know, is working in at one of the colleges up there. I think North Texas State. Maybe doing like sports announcing, working in the sports information department, maybe. Mark Lawrence, I don't know. Bronco Lubitsch, I don't know what happened to Bronco Lubitsch. Do you expect any WCW wrestler involvement in the Shane Big Show match on Sunday? It's a big rumor going around. I don't know. So I guess that's what I'll say. I don't know. I haven't asked. I haven't heard, you know, specifically of guys going. I think it would make perfect sense to do it. I think it'd be a great time to introduce someone. But it'd have to be a key person, which means they'd have to, you know, I mean, it'd have to be a Booker T or a Scott Steiner or a Ric Flair, because if it's Sean O'Hare or one of those guys that are under contract, or even Lance Storm, I think that the impact would be less. But, you know, we'll see. Is Billy up? Let's get to superstar Billy Graham. Billy, how you doing today?
Hey, Dave Meltzer. I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really good. It's good to hear your voice. We've been doing the email thing lately.
Yeah, well, that's how it goes in these days of technology. You know, nobody ever talks to anybody anymore. They email. There's no more voices. They're just words going through space.
You know, a lot of people know this and a lot of people don't, but, you know, Billy has been working on a book, like everybody in wrestling, and I've been really interested in the last couple of chapters. You know, it's actually you're about, what did I say, you're midway through your career right about now?
Yeah, actually, probably by now, since you received the last chapter, I've got 3 more under my belt. I'm into the dreaded kung fu.
Oh boy.
Which I really don't like to talk about, and I even hate words writing about.
The kung fu.
You didn't spend 3 chapters on it, did you?
Huh?
You didn't spend 3 chapters on it, did you?
No, I didn't. I chronicled very concise.
Well, from a personal standpoint, though, that was one of the. I mean, it had to be one of the toughest periods of your career.
Yeah, it was, and it just goes to prove the old saying, the old adage, or whatever it is that people coined the phrase. Never, you know, if you got a thing going, never change a good thing that you got going. You know, whatever it is you got going, don't change it if it doesn't make sense.
If it's not broken.
Yeah,
don't fix it when it's not broken.
That's it. And but when I stayed out for about 2.5 years there, after I dropped the strap to Bruno, that happened in 78, February 20th, 78. Well, that really took, and I go through this in my book. That really took a lot out of me, because I was, even though that was the deal set a year before with Vince Sr. and myself, that Backlund was going, in fact, to take that strap on or around February, March 78. I was so over. All it would have took would have been a switch with Ivan Koloff turning on me and letting me juice and carry me out, and they could have fed me Monster Heels, turned me a baby face, and fed me Monster Heels like they did Bruno. So it really, it's kind of odd that we bring that up now, but that was really almost like a sign of mourning to me in the business, wearing black and shaving my head and coming back as a different person almost. The fans in Philly never believed it was me.
Well, you know, that was Monsoon's fault.
They thought it was this isn't Superstar Billy Graham, shaved head, black mustache, black karate pants, and by that time I started losing a lot of weight. I was heavily into drugs, and I didn't even resemble the person that had left the spectrum 3 years before, and fans just didn't believe it was me. And but there I was.
I got to tell a story about this one. And Brian, I don't know if you know this story or not, but you know, Billy was when Billy left after losing the title to Backlund, he was pretty much disappeared from wrestling. Just probably wrestled a little bit around Arizona. I mean, almost the name was gone, and then a rumor started because you know here was a guy who was, you know, one of the 3-4 biggest stars in the entire profession, and just vanished. You know, shortly after losing the title. So, you know, I mean, it wasn't. You know, so the rumors were that because you were gone, it was remember the Paul McCartney rumors from years earlier that Billy Graham had cancer and then that Billy Graham had died, and nobody could ever confirm it, but it was like this story that everyone would ask about, and this was before we had any communication in this industry whatsoever. And you know, I mean, I wasn't as into it as I would have been years later, but I mean, I heard the rumors, I didn't know if they were true, and people would always basically deny it, and then. In the Philadelphia newspaper, was it the Old Inquirer or something?
Yeah, the legit Inquirer.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the daily newspaper in Philadelphia. Gorilla Monsoon would do a wrestling column.
I think I remember this.
And Gorilla Monsoon wrote the obituary for, you know, Billy Graham passed away at the age of whatever from cancer, and so about, you know, and he was still alive, and I think. When he found out, he wrote Gorilla a letter and go, hey, I'm still alive, and Gorilla never printed a retraction.
That's right, they never did the retraction.
Never did the retraction.
So to this day, do they still consider you dead?
I'm wondering if, like you know how they always go through, like, clips, you know, like, news story clips. So, if, like, you know, there's been... So anyway, when Billy came back, you know, in New York and all those cities because of the rep that he had from before, more because of the rep he had from before, when you came back to challenge Backlund, sellout after sellout. But in Philadelphia, those people thought that it was, you know, he had a different look, but it was still Billy Graham in New York. In Philadelphia, it was not.
It was not, and the fans didn't buy it. Oddly enough, I didn't write Gorilla Monsoon. I called the man in Willingboro, his home. I said, Gorilla, this is the superstar, brother. I'm alive and well. I said, this is even a funnier part of the story. I said, man, you got to print a retraction. You know, even if you stick it at the last page at the bottom where you usually do, you know, put something in that I'm still alive and well. I said, who told you I was dead anyway? He said, well, that was a word going around. He said, I called the Arizona Republic and Gazette, the newspaper in Phoenix, and he said, have you ever heard of a superstar Billy Graham, or his real name is Wayne Coleman? And yes, they said, we've heard of him, and the sports department talking now. And can you tell me if he's alive or dead? And they said, no, we can't. We can't. Then he called the Scottsdale, a suburb of Phoenix, the real ultra rich part of Beverly Hills in Arizona. And he called the Scottsdale newspaper and said, have you ever heard of a superstar Billy Graham, whose real name is Wayne Coleman? And we're trying to confirm if he's alive or dead. And he said, well, I know the name, but I can't tell you if he's alive or dead. So that was his source.
That's journalism.
Monsoon source. I told him, I said, you're an idiot, Monsoon, for saying that. Funny deal. But I found also another interesting thing. I found out who the source was who started the rumor, and was none other than our rock and roll buddy, cowboy rock and roll buddy, Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream.
Really? I never heard that.
He confessed to me personally that he got the buzz started that I had died as a rib. And
oh God!
People, hey, Paul Bosch gave me 10 bells in Houston.
I never heard that one either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was, yeah. And matter of fact, I just finished writing a piece in my book on my experience with Paul Bosch, who's probably I thought was the greatest gentleman promoter in the business that I've ever run across. And all across the country, people have given me 1, 2, 3. You know, in certain towns, I garnered 10 bells. In some towns, I was only worth a 3 bell. But that was the story, man. And oddly enough, and when I came back and I had that look, that karate look, and the shaved head, I was real tan. I was tanning all summer, coming out here in the desert, getting ready for that. I believe it was October. First of October was my first shot with Backlund in the garden, and man, I was tan. And I was really in good shape. I dropped some body weight and got cut up and pretty ripped, so I looked decent at that time. And for some reason, the New York market fans bought it. They bought the fact that I guess the superstar name was strong enough in the New York market that they bought it, and we had 3 straight sellouts. And it was one of the sellouts, Dave, and I'll pass this along to all your listeners. It was a gruesome. It was the first time I ever had to do this in pro wrestling. We're the Hills locker room. Vince always took the baby faces. Vince Senior always took the baby faces over to the Hills locker room to go over the finishes and talk over the finishes and get everything straight. You know, it's easier to get baby faces over than to get heels over. You know, so. He said, well, Billy, we're going to stop the match on blood tonight. You know, we're going to use the blood gimmick, too much blood. Well, I thought he was talking about me. You know, I'm the bleeder. You know, I was the bleeder. And he says, but we have one problem. Backlund has never cut himself.
So you had to cut him?
Oh, my God. I said, what? Well, I said, well, yeah, he does have a pretty clean-looking forehead there. And he said, you're going to have to cut Backlund's head for him for the finish. And you're going to have to get enough juice. So, because there were some matches in the garden that were stopped on juice that were juice. I mean, you know, I was in some of them. So you had to bleed a lot for the garden to stop the match. So there we go, into the finish. I threw Backlund outside. I'll never forget it, Dave. I threw him outside the ring for the finish. And he was up against the ring apron with his back to the rows of seats, to the fans, and I was on my hands and knees hovering over Bob Backlund, and I uncovered my blade, and I dug into his forehead and went across. It was just like a gruesome feeling, and he got up, and I could tell there wasn't enough blood, you know, and so I said, wow. Do this, Backlund, but I'm going to have to cut your head again. Get back down, go back outside. So I knocked him outside. Boom, I cut his head again. I could never stab anybody, I tell you. Not after that experience of feeling another human being's skin just rip apart, you know, just like, oh, man. But that was really kind of a funny story along with that.
It's good that Billy Robinson didn't know that you actually couldn't do it.
Yes, that's right. Billy Robinson knew good and well I could do it.
I want to start with James in Kentucky. James, you're first up with Billy.
How you doing?
Hey, all right.
Doing good.
I just want to say you're a real inspiration to me when I'm thinking about getting into the wrestling business, and you're an inspiration to me.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And there's 2 Billy Grahams in this world that I love. Reverend Billy Graham and the superstar Billy Graham.
All right. Hey, man, they used to give my, the airline ticket agencies used to get my name mixed up with the Reverend Billy Graham. And when I'd say I'd give them a itinerary for Billy Graham, they would say to me, you mean you're the real Billy Graham? He thought I was the Reverend. But, yeah, well, I appreciate that very much. I certainly do.
Hey, Dave?
Yes?
I got a nickname for you, Dynamite Dave.
Okay, cool.
Wow.
Yeah, write that down, Dave.
That's pretty impressive.
Y'all have a good weekend. Y'all have a good weekend.
Okay, thanks very much.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Billy, I'm sure you know, I was trying to think about this, you know, when before we did the show and everything, and I actually couldn't come up with a period where you would have crossed paths with Johnny Valentine, but just because you were both top guys, I figured at some point you must have. I mean, just when I think about it, I can't place a time where you and him would have been in the same territory.
Yeah, the time was 1975 in Houston, and it was. I worked with him in Houston, and then I went to see him and Flair and Druggers in the hospital because they were flown to Houston Hospital after that plane wreck. Mm-hmm. Well, I did wrestle, in fact, Johnny Valentine, and, you know, it was really funny because he was one of the stiffest guys, you know, when I was in Minnesota, going around the Midwest, toe-to-toe with Wahoo McDaniels, he would tell me war stories that they had in Texas against each other, Valentine and Wahoo McDaniel. And I had all these stories in my mind when it was time to wrestle them. So in the locker room, it was kind of funny. I said, Johnny, let me sit down here for a minute and talk to you. I said, man, I think you're a great guy. I said, but please go easy on me, you know. And he had a big laugh, and he just smiled. And to be honest, it was no different than any other match as far as him brutalizing an opponent. But him and Wahoo was just like Flair. They would leave blood blisters from those chops on the chest, and I didn't want anything to do with that. It was a good time. It was a fun. I only wrestled him once. It was a fun match. Johnny seemed to have fun with it because he would tell me to get set. Here comes one. You know, I'm going to really lay this one in. And I'd grab the ropes. I'd be gripping the ropes with my back in the turnbuckle and frozen in fear, waiting for this crushing forearm to come down. But he never hurt me. You know, he never did. So that's kind of a funny thing. But I did wrestle him one time.
You know, one of the guys, in fact, it was interesting, when we did a show on Tuesday, kind of a tribute to Johnny because he passed away.
Yes.
And Flair was on with Red Bastien, and you crossed paths with both of those guys. And their thing was, you know, we should do a show like this about Ray Stevens, which, of course, popped into my mind having read the stuff you've written. Ray Stevens was basically your wrestling hero.
Oh, he was my hero. He was out and out my wrestling hero, period. Just as I was Jesse Ventura's wrestling hero, as many guys have read in different, reports and news letters and newspapers and books and everything else. Jesse still calls me his wrestling hero, and Ray Stevens forever will be my wrestling hero. You know, and he just he not only had the superior wrestling knowledge and the timing, you know, everything about the man was unbelievable, but he had really a human side to him. You know, there wasn't a prefabricated wrestler made out of plastic in a ring. He was a real human person, you know, a real guy. And he was, and he always will be my wrestling. It'd be great to do a show on Ray.
Yeah, because I'm sure that we're going to do it. We'll try to get like Bockwinkel and Ric Flair, Red Bastien, yourself, some other people, and put that one together, and probably in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Besides writing, what have you been doing, and how close do you follow wrestling? I know that you watch it. I know you watch it a little bit now.
I watch it a little bit, not a whole lot, not as much, really. You know, I enjoy it. The guys take tremendous risks, and it's incredibly entertaining. But I think there's too much flesh out there, really, for me. And so I really don't watch as flesh. I mean, you know, as in women. And don't get me wrong, I like women, you know, but I'm married. But I spend, of course, every week, I'll tell you how I do spend at least 2 hours of my time. Do you want to know?
Sure.
All right. At least every week on Saturdays, I spent at least 2 to 2.5 hours reading the Wrestler Observer newsletter. And I have a very funny story to tell you. It'll just take a second before we take the next caller. In your, matter of fact, I want to congratulate you on your February 12th. I'm one of your guys. I'm one of your fans, Dave, that collect the observers. I didn't used to do that, but I realized that these were jewels, nuggets of, information, and I started collecting them. So on February 12th, back on February 12th, you did the retirement of Stan Hansen. And I know you remember that because you chronicled his career in a tremendous way. I was really impressed with it, but I just wanted here's a chance for me to correct Dave Meltzer. Well, this is going to be good. But you had no way of really knowing unless you had an eyewitness. Let me read this to you. This is fresh out of your February 12th newsletter on your piece about Stan Hansen retiring. Because Hansen came to the WWW, there's 3 W's again. I put that in my book. That's like a mouthful. You say W forever before you get to the F. and no real reputation and only a few weeks of television build-up and a rush job of trying to create a new superstar and dreaded finisher called the Lariat as a threat to San Martino. The April 26, 1976 first meeting of the two in Madison Square Garden drew 17,493 fans, a low figure for that era. Now, midway through the match, this was the crux of the match. This is where the accident happened. Midway through the match, in executing a simple body slam, Hansen released him early, San Martino. He released him early and dropped him on his head, resulting in San Martino suffering a broken neck. Now, what it was not a simple, ordinary body slam. Just imagine you for a minute, Dave. Just picture yourself, and the listeners and our visitors, just picture yourself for a minute. Me in the ring, and Dave Meltzer is Bruno San Martino. And I'm beating him, kicking him, and I'm dropping knee drops on him, and I'm getting him ready to set up for a slam. I get up, I throw San Martino across the ropes. He propels back across the ropes towards me, and instead of greeting San Martino with my right arm underneath his crotch and my left arm above his shoulder and lifting him and slamming him, that way protecting him, what I saw, and I saw this because Ivan Koloff and I were on last that night, so I had a chance to watch the match from the curtains just barely 50 feet from the ring. As San Martino approached Hansen, if you can just picture Hansen reaching over to the left, his left arm reaching over to the right side of his body, and his right arm going under his left arm like a scissor. And San Martino ran into that, and he grabbed him and twisted him like he was on a Ferris wheel in some weird, maybe it's a Mexican move, you know, that he saw. But it was a scissor move, and as he twisted him, he squeezed, and they were both so sweaty that he just like a spaghetti slipped straight down on his head. And of course, I'll never forget the moan in the garden. It was like, oh God, it was like so sickening because he landed square on his head, and it was from this unorthodox, twisting, weird body slam that it gave San Martino that broke his neck. And also, he didn't say go to the hospital that night. He was able to shower. He was able to go to his hotel room. He said he told me this personally. He said he had a few beers, and he laid down, and the next morning he couldn't move. And reached over to the phone, called the office downstairs. They called the paramedics, the ambulance. They rushed him to the hospital. The man's got a broken neck, and they find him in Pittsburgh. But it was so incredible because I read on in that article, and you were right that Hansen was so hot. I was traveling with Hansen and Ivan Koloff. The three of us were traveling on the road together at that time when that incident happened. And Stan Hansen, he was so afraid to call Bruno at home once he got out of the hospital. I remember he was in my room one day with me and Solop. We were laughing. He was saying, "Hey, you guys, I'm afraid to call Bruno. You know, you're saying hands to this stuff, human being." He said, "What do I say? What would I say to the guy? I'm sorry." You know, yeah, say you're sorry and how you doing? How you getting along? And so sure enough, he did call Bruno from my hotel room up in Maine. It was up in somewhere in godforsaken frozen Maine, you know, or thawing out Maine by this time of the year. And so he got up the nerve to call Bruno, and Bruno, being the great guy that he is, just said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Accidents happen, you know." But Hansen released that finishing hold, or that crisscross scissor slam from his repertoire from that point on, and it was an incredible, that lariat. What they did in New York, Dave, to get that lariat over, I think Blassie was his manager.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And okay, he was. And what they did on TV, on television taping, they loaded that lariat with about 25 silver dollars. So when the jobber came off the ropes in the job match on television, came off the ropes, and Hansen whacked him with this lariat, so about 50 silver dollars flew out of the lariat all over the ring, man. And people stood up and screamed and yelled, and it made him extremely hot. So that was just a kind of a funny thing that I want to add to your great story on his retirement. So the next time you write about him, tell him it was some weird Mexican scissor body.
Now, you know, I mean, one of the things, you know, when we talked to Bruno, just a couple days ago, and you know, Bruno has actually never seen that match, although there's film of it, and he has no recollection of the match because I was talking to him because I've actually seen the match.
No recollection after the broken neck.
No, he remembers being slammed on his head, and that's the last thing he remembers about the match. And I go, yeah, you know what was amazing about that match is, you know, here you had a broken neck, you got up, you made a comeback, you knocked him out of the ring. I think it was like stopped on blood or whatever it was. You know, Bruno lost on blood, but you know, I mean, Bruno made a comeback and he goes, "I did?" And I go, "Yeah, you did." And he goes, "How do you know?" I go, "I've seen the tape." And he just goes, "There's a tape." He goes, "I don't remember anything after being dropped on my head."
Yeah, well, that's true in most trauma incidents. People who get shot or people in car wrecks, they remember the point up to the impact and up to the problem of getting injured, and they remember nothing after that, you know. But yeah, the guy wrestled like for another 13 or 14 minutes, maybe 12 minutes longer after he had the broken neck.
Yeah.
It was just a phenomenal, and he was so lucky, brother. He was so lucky by doing that, because, I mean, I don't know what the exact measurement was before that vertebrae or disc or whatever it was severed his spinal cord, but it was in the milligrams.
Oh yeah, he was close to paralysis.
Oh yeah, he was real close to being a quad. I mean, he was as close as you could possibly get and not become a quad.
Yeah, and he wrestled, was it 7-8 weeks later?
Yeah,
at the Shea Stadium show.
Way too.
Anyway,
but that was Bruno. He always wanted to do it for the. You know, he was always. Even though he hated Vince Jr., he was on good terms with Vince Sr. He seemed to be anyway, but he just came way back too soon for that Shea Stadium show.
Our guest today is superstar Billy Graham, who spawned both Jesse Ventura and Hulk Hogan, and many years ago,
Scott Steiner.
Scott Steiner.
Had a lot to say about lately.
Scott Steiner, Perry Saturn. Have you seen Perry Saturn on TV lately, Billy?
No, I heard though. My webmaster Steve Slago told me that
he's trying to look like you.
Goatee or something.
What?
Two-tone goatee like mine or something.
Yeah, the goatee and you know, it's definitely the same physique.
Yeah, his physique was a lot better than mine. I tell you that, man. He's got this physique. I didn't have the tattoos though.
Yeah. One thing. Now, health-wise, you know, you've been through the ringer and then some. I mean, with some, you know, the list is long, and was it 7 hip replacements?
Yeah, 6 hip replacements on the left hip, 6 total. That means totally taking the hip, ball and socket out and redoing it. 6 on the left side, 1 on the right side. I've had an ankle fusion where the dead bone in my ankle had to be removed, and there's about 7 or 8 pins in it now, and that ankle is fixed. It doesn't move. It's like a club. So it makes it very hard to get out of chairs and walk, and it throws my agility off. So I've had a ton of orthopedic injuries with the hips and the ankles and my lower back. I've lost probably a good 3 inches in height from all of the hip surgeries, the ankle surgery, and my lower back is also collapsing possibly because of steroid use, and so I have a lot of back problems also. And I lost about 2 months of riding here a couple months ago because my hepatitis C flared up, and it made me extremely fatigued. And then the doctor that was giving me the medicine gave me a medicine that was supposed to help the hepatitis C, but in fact I had a reaction to it, and it made me sicker than I was to begin with. So I was just laid up in my bed for about like 2 months, trying to get well. So, but other than that, my health is good. I got a stationary bike. I ride it. I'm just trying to lose the weight. So when I get this book out here, when I get this book released, I'm hoping for an October, no later than a mid-October release on my book. That if any opportunities come up to go to a book signing, I'll be able to fly and walk around and meet some fans and sign some books.
Now, how much of the book is going to deal with wrestling, and how much with religion, or is it? Because just the stuff I've read is pretty much all wrestling.
Oh yeah, well the wrestling fan is getting his fill of wrestling stories. I'm chronicling my entire wrestling career. And then the first chapter, which I haven't written yet, I'm kind of saving it for the end, is my youth going through working out at home. Because I was so poor, I made cement plates. I took bands of this real loose steel and rounded and screwed them together, made them round, and poured cement in them and stuck a pipe in it. And when the cement started setting up, I would pull the pipe out so I'd have a hole to run a galvanized pipe through for a barbell. And for my dumbbells, I used Folgers coffee cans, poured cement into those, and put the handle in there and let it solidify to the handle and the concrete, and then turned it upside down to another coffee can. So I went all through the bodybuilding. I was in the bodybuilding from probably the 6th grade on.
Well, you were.
Didn't you train a few times with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh, I trained.
Regular partner.
I trained several times with him, but in '72 I trained the entire summer with him. In 1972, at the original Gold's Gym there in Venice, and that's what really changed my physique. From just a big guy like I was in San Francisco and relatively smooth, I became more muscular. I got more muscularity. I got more of a bodybuilder's physique, and that really helped set the tone for my career, because I got more intense into bodybuilding and entered the Pro Mr. America contest in September of '75, just barely 1 month before the airplane crash that took down Valentine and Flair and the boys. And I placed 4th overall. It was Dan Lurie, World Bodybuilding Guild, Pro Mr. America, Pro Mr. Universe. I took 4th place in the Pro Mr. America and Best Arm subtitle. So that was, I really got the bug while I was in Dallas to really bodybuild. And Arnold sparked that. And then, of course, perfect timing, Dave. Right after the Mr. America contest in New York, I had already been contacted by Vince Sr. to start taping in October. So I came in at the best shape I could possibly be into New York, coming in ripped, which I don't think too many people in New York saw very many wrestlers coming in ripped in that era.
Yeah, it was a different thing. They had a lot of big guys, but
everybody
but they didn't have the bodybuilder.
Yeah, I mean, Ivan Koloff, 5, 10, or 11, 300 pounds. You had Gorilla Monsoon. You had all the monsters were fed to Bruno. But I came in weighing 245 and cut to the bone, not cut as well as I could have if I would have had more time to train. I never did reach my physique potential. I really don't think I ever did, because you have to take time off. You need a year. You just need time, and it doesn't. Wrestling doesn't afford you the time. But I had a special tote bag I carried around with me. I carried a blender with me during this time, this 1976 time in the Madison Square Garden era, New York territory. I carried a blender and protein, and I could pick up a jar of Tang at any supermarket and throw some bananas in it. So I was getting my protein all day long by carrying a blender with me. I had to do it because I was on the road so much.
Now, during
so what exactly changed when you were training with Arnold? Was it just you were more careful with the nutrition? Was he working out differently than what you'd done? Or?
Everything was nutrition. It was low fat, a lot of protein, and it was really, really watching your diet and lifting heavy weights and getting the maximum out of the heavy weights, as most reps, as most sets as you could get out of your exercise, and being consistent. Regularity is the key to any bodybuilder, even today, because you get up at the same time, you work out at the same time, you eat at the same time, you take a nap at the same time every day, you get sun every day at the same time, and leading into the Mr. Olympia, the big time, like Arnold, you work out in the evening at the same time. So everything is like clockwork, and your body adjusts to that clockwork, and it becomes a perfect scenario for a bodybuilder. The wrestlers don't have really, well, I guess they have a lot more time now than they did then. That's obvious. But that's the biggest key, was there were no secret exercises. I'll put it that way. There were no secret formulas. Of course, part of the formula that I was taking, it was obvious. I was taking steroids. That was a major ingredient in the formula, but it was a lot of hard work and just following Arnold like a shadow. I mean, he did a set, I'd spot him, I'd lay down and do a set, spot him, he'd do a set, I'd spot him, he'd get up and pose for 5 minutes in front of the mirror, and like I said in my book, a lot of people, this annoyed a lot of guys. As a matter of fact, it annoyed Dave Draper. And Dave Draper.
Yeah, sure, from Santa Cruz. Who was, big legend in bodybuilding.
Yeah, unbelievable physique. And when Draper was around,
still to this day.
Yeah, to this day. That it really annoyed Draper because of all of Arnold's flexing. But to me, it was like, this is what I really need to be a success in wrestling. I don't need.
Well, that was really.
To learn technical moves, I need to know how to pose.
Yeah, no, that was the gimmick. You went to you went right from training with Arnold to the AWA, and the AWA is where you really hit it big there with Wahoo.
Yeah, my glory years took off, man. I mean, I impacted the AWA and see, the AWA in the Midwest was just not ready for me, man. I was so colorful with my tie-dyes and all of my tie-dye shirts and tie-dye tights and the blonde hair and the ripped arms and just no one liked me. They'd never seen anybody like me in pro wrestling and the AWA, man. I mean, I just came in and it was effortlessly. I'm not trying to brag about that, but it was such a difference between me and the rest of the crew that I looked like I was still tan from a summer of tanning on the beach in Santa Monica with Arnold when I first hit Minneapolis. And I was real tan, blonde hair, tremendous kaleidoscope of colors, and rap. I started getting into my poems and my poetry, which I
all the stuff Dusty took from
Ali, Muhammad Ali, So
you got it from Ali, and then Dusty got it from you.
Yeah, Dusty got it from me. Yeah.
And then Hogan too.
Yeah. Then the Hulkster, but. Actually, I accept that as a form of compliment. I've never, and you know how fans are, Dave, especially back then, man, you know, fans latch onto their star, their hero, and they're insulted if anybody even try to come near your look. Well, when Jesse he beat the Hulk to it. When Jesse came out with his, as I put in my book, he had the Elton John look, and I went for the more color coordinated look. Well, my fans, when Jesse started getting some notoriety and in the magazines and stuff, and was coming around the country, all my fans would come to me and say, "Hey, Superstar, don't you know that Jesse Ventura is trying to rip you off, Superstar? He's stealing your gimmick, man. He's taking your clothes. He's taking your look." You know, I said, and I would laugh and say, "Well, I'm just glad I had something to give." You know, I'm glad he liked it. You know, and
let's go. Let's run.
They were very defensive about their personal favorites. You know.
Let's start running to the calls. We're going to start with Ed. Ed, what's going on?
So how you guys doing today? I just want to say that it's an honor to talk to the Superstar. And Billy, what I wanted to ask you is on that big cage match that you had with Backlund when you dropped the title, and I believe your leg had got caught in the cage. Was that something that just happened during the match, or was that actually how it was booked to end?
Oh, yes, that was booked. See, because when I beat Bruno in Baltimore, I used the ropes with my feet as leverage. And so when it came time to hatch the golden eggs for Backlund, Vince Sr. said, "Well, what was fair?" And I was shocked at this because I just thought Bobby Backlund was just going to flat out pin me right in the middle of the ring. And I was prepared to do that clean job. But he said, "We're going to, since you beat Bruno using the ropes, we're going to use the finish where Backlund gives you this, atomic drop or what, I forgot what he called the hold up above your head, drops you on your head."
Yeah, atomic drop.
On his knees. What do they call it?
Atomic drop.
Atomic drop. Okay, that was it then. And then I took a big bump and landed with my feet my right leg right next to the ropes. As soon as the ref counts, as soon as he hit one, I threw my right leg over the bottom strand of the rope, obviously over the bottom strand, clearly in front of everybody, but the ref went 1, 2, 3. So, in essence, the fans who knew about the finish in Baltimore, me using the ropes, got a lot of, payback by me being beat at my own gimmick, trying to stop the count by putting my feet over the ropes. So it was definitely written into the finish. And a funny story here. Here's an inside story. 3 days before I went to the Garden and laid down for Backlund, I wrestled in Pittsburgh against Pusky in a cage, totally sold out, turned away thousands of people. That was on Friday night. The next Saturday night, I wrestled Bruno in the cage in the Spectrum, and that was the time they estimated that they turned away 10,000 people. Police estimates were anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 people couldn't get inside the building, and I don't know what it held, 19,000 or something for wrestling.
Right about there, yeah.
Because, I mean, all there was a little ring in the middle of the building, you know, and chairs. There were no ramps. There were no, you know, so
no big stage.
Bruno telling me, you know, the look. He said, "Listen, I know you're going to drop the strap to Backlund this coming Monday, a day from tomorrow. This was Saturday night, and Monday night in the Garden, I was going to drop it to Backlund." He said, "Why don't we hurt your knee so you go into the match in Madison Square Garden with Backlund already hurt, so it doesn't hurt you that much losing because you're already hurt." So we decided.
Triple H at work.
Huh?
Nothing. It's an inside joke with Brian.
We're going to work the people. We're going to work Backlund. And I said, "Great idea. What do I do?" And he says, "Okay, we'll do a spot where you got me up against the cage and you run and give me a real high knee to the face, jump up and give him a knee to the face like to knock him out and drag him up the gate." And Bruno ducked. He ducked the knee, and my left ducked the punch of the knee, and my left knee crushed into the hurricane fence, into the fence, And when I sold it, the secret was I didn't sell it like you were naturally sell a hold. I just almost froze. You know, I didn't sell. Oh my God! I didn't beg off. I didn't cower off. I didn't say, don't, Bruno, don't know. I just laid there and I grabbed the referee and said, I think I've broken my kneecap. My kneecap feels like it's torn loose. The patella. I said, man, there's something wrong with me. And he walked over to Bruno and buzzed Bruno, and immediately Bruno went to work on another body part. So the boys who were watching and the fans who were watching must have, well, especially the boys, we would work the boys, man. They thought I had a legitimate injury because Bruno didn't go after the knee that was supposedly hurt. So going into the garden, I come limping in that Monday night to get the belt to Backlund, man. I come limping in, favoring my left knee, and Gorilla Monsoon sees me and
he sees you. He's going like, they're trying to pull a work on me and get.
Yeah, right.
He's gonna say that he's hurt, and we got to put a sub in the main event.
Yeah, I almost broke my knee in Philly, working with Bruno in the cage, and Gorilla says, I can fix that. Get up on this table. So I stripped down and put my tights on and left my boots off, and I stood on this table. I had guys help me up on the table, and Bruno proceeded to give me a wrap around that knee like it was a cast. And then they told Backlund, from the second that bell rings, you go after the knee. So it doesn't give me time to walk around the ring with a limp favoring my left knee. So that shows you how it went.
That's an interesting story.
Okay, I wanted to ask one more thing.
Sure.
I had heard part of an interview that you did on your website where you had admitted that you had, I believe it was on the Phil Donahue show, that you had lied about Pat Patterson. And I know you had hard feelings with the McMahons and you were angry at the time, but what I wanted to know is why did you pick Patterson to be the one that you had, that you said what you said?
I lashed out at? Is he saying, why did I take Patterson to be the...
Yeah,
the scapegoat? Well, first of all, I was on drugs. Number one, I was on heavy downers and speed at the same time, so my mind didn't know which way it was going. And number two, I was bitter because I had thought Vince McMahon had given me a lifetime job, and even when I was done wrestling, I'd be in the office, I'd be doing something. He told me you'll never have to work for anybody else the rest of your life, and of course all of it never came true. And so the steroid scandal and the sex scandal was red hot, as Dave chronicled in the Observer at that time, and it did cost the WWF money. But I don't know why. I don't know why I singled out Patterson, except that it was such a great lie.
Ooh.
That I knew it would get a tremendous amount of response. Plus, I felt later on my website when I read a piece on Patterson in my book, I apologized on my website to Pat Patterson for that and acknowledged that I lied on national television about Pat Patterson, that I did not in fact see the incident that I said I saw on the Phil Donahue show. So that's what drugs will do to your mind. And bitterness, too.
We've got a bunch of phone calls. I want to go through a couple of these emails real quick. The Kung Fu thing, someone's asked about that. Let's see. When you came back, the idea was that you had been gone. The story was you had been gone for a couple of years studying martial arts, and you were like a world martial arts champion. Was that basically it? Shaved your head, totally new look, and that was basically the gist of that Kung Fu gimmick in like what, around 82-ish, I'm guessing.
Correct. That's what it was exactly. It was a made-up angle, made-up version, made-up gimmick, and I really believe I did that. I really analyzing it now, and even thinking back then, it was like I was so distraught over not giving a chance, even though Backlund was the guy picked by Vince to go all the way with a belt. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that if Vince Sr. would have turned me babyface as hot as it was, I already had Superstar Billy Graham's cards and post big giant cards and signs and banners all over different arenas around the territory. So I was
you were half getting over as a babyface anyway.
Oh yeah, I was there. I was literally just an Ivan Koloff turn on me, juice, blood, cheered me out of the ring there. I would have been the hottest babyface. I could have never followed Bruno, of course. There's only one Bruno Sammartino. I could have never followed his success, but I know that I would have been an extremely hot babyface, and it would have been an instant sellout with just heel after heel after heel after heel. So I just, I took a sabbatical. I laid out in the desert. I got a suntan. I worked out a little bit. I started a collections agency on my own, and I made a little bit of money that way. And then came back with I changed my look. I'll be the kung fu fighter, and it was a disaster. The very low point of my career.
This is from Garen Shea, who goes, he remembers seeing you in Nashville around 1979. Legend has it you left abruptly when you were asked to job for the infamous George Goulas. Is that a true story? I never heard the story.
No, untrue.
Untrue story.
There during, I think, 80, and only for a few shots. And they actually, Donnie Leibel sent me a program about 2 months ago with a few other programs for some reference for my book. And on one of those programs, I was holding a belt of some kind from that territory.
Well, did you hold the CWA world title in that Memphis area?
This was...
I seem to remember you feuding with a bodybuilder-looking guy named Pat McGinnis, who never really made it big anywhere.
Right, good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that area over like the CWA World Heavyweight title.
Right. Yes. Exactly. But my memory is so vague on that. I didn't even realize I had won their version of a world championship title until Donnie Leibel sent me some articles for reference material. I called him back. I said, "You mean tell me?" I said, "Oh my God, I had to be champion of there." It's funny.
Let's run to Bob in Houston. Bob, what's going on?
It's in Boston, actually.
Oh, Boston. I'm sorry.
Superstar, it's a real pleasure speaking to you. I watched when you beat Bruno for the belt. I was around 9 or 10 years old. I hated your guts, and by the time you lost the belt, you were my hero. I have a question for you, though. Went to a Boston Garden match where you wrestled Dusty Rhodes Dusty Rhodes wrestled you for the title, and I don't know what the heck happened. Again, I was 10. Maybe I'm not remembering it right. But it looked like Rhodes pinned you, and the referee was like really reluctant to count the 3 count, and did so. And he left. Dusty left the ring with the belt, and then like a few minutes later, they made an announcement that for some reason they gave you the belt back. Am I remembering this properly, or?
You're probably remembering that, Bob, better than I do. I know I wrestled Dusty all throughout the Northeast territory, Vince's territory, and in Boston for sure. And there was a finish. This might have been the one, but there was a finish, and I have a photo of it. It's on the cover of a magazine that a fan sent me. That Andre the Giant is the referee, reffing Superstar Billy Graham and Dusty Rhodes, and that might have been the deal where they used an angle and Andre actually reffed the match. And maybe another referee came in and overruled Andre and brought the belt back. But
yeah,
exact details I can't recall.
Okay, well, I just found it strange because, I mean, it looked like the ref was, like, real hesitant to make the 3 count.
I bet he was.
And he finally did.
He was, too.
He finally did, and, like, Rhodes got up and left with the belt.
Yeah, well, Rhodes got up and left with my belt in a lot of arenas, brother. Almost arena,
early Dusty finish.
He would leave
That's right.
the ring with my belt.
All right, well, best of luck, Superstar, and, lots of health.
Hey, thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. And, Bob, let me ask you something. Since you were watching me about 9, 10, 11 years old, do you remember the net they used to have over the ring in the Boston Gardens? that net that hung over the ring, the net was put there. It looked like a fisherman's net that would go out and fish for tuna, and they hung it over the ring to help protect the wrestlers because of flying chairs and different debris.
Really? I remember that. Yes, I do.
Yeah, you remember the net over the ring?
Yeah.
That was for our protection.
It was kind of high, though.
Boston was. Thanks, Bob.
All right, thanks.
Okay, let's go to Jason in New Jersey. Jason, what's up?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the after mags, I mean, I was 9 around 84, and Superstar, just seeing your picture in the, Inside Wrestling or the Wrestler every month, I mean, it scared the crap out of me.
Really?
I wish I could have. My grandma lived in Florida in Hudson, so I'd go down twice a year and get to see you then at least. But seeing you against Pistol Pez Watley and the Saint and all of them down in Florida.
The Saint? Who was the Saint?
Oh,
I just remember
You tell me.
I remember. I don't remember the Saint. I mean, it's just vaguely. I don't know. Whatever. You don't remember either, then, Bill? No.
He was listed from Cuba.
I don't know. I don't know who it was.
And he was ranked in the bottom of the top 10 of Florida, like with Dutch Mantel.
Okay.
So what's your question, bud?
I was just saying how great it was to just see you in those mags. I mean, I didn't get to see much, but just reading about your exploits all those years, it left a big impression on me.
Well, thank you very much. I hope it was a good impression.
Yeah.
I hope you didn't go out and rob a bank because of me.
Oh, no. But I also heard the Howard Stern show today with the big boxing match.
Oh, how was that?
Oh, it was funny as hell. I mean, it was, it's on CBS tomorrow night, and Triple H was great because he was, like his old DX jokes. Like one of the guys was, a crazy cabbie. He's a little ambiguous with his sexuality, so he was 100 pounds over the other guy, Angry Black, and he kept leaning on him. So Triple H was saying he was cuddling him the whole time. He's like all the DX jokes he used to make.
What's that joke he made once? I buy a lot of things, but...
Oh, yeah, during during King of the Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, he's like, I wish I didn't say that or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the funniest guy was Iron Sheik today. He was like, I fought Bruno Sammartino, Andre the Giant, Sunny Beach.
Yeah, I heard that. Sunny Beach.
So he kept grabbing the mic
man.
and,
That's why when he broke in for Fern Gagne. And,
That's right. He broke in the same time as Flair and those guys.
Huh?
He broke in around the same era when Ric Flair broke in and Greg Gagne, Jim Brunzell.
They were in training camp together.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You had mentioned this to me. We had Flair on, and I never knew that, when you first went to Minneapolis, I didn't know it until reading it in the book that, when you would be flying from city to city, the guy who was picking you up and taking you home was Flair.
Yeah, it was funny because after I started making some money and I got hot, well, that territory was spread out over the entire Midwest. I mean, you talk about driving miles and endless miles. I mean, so when I started making some dollars and bucks, man, I would just get lazy and spend the night and hand Flair the keys to my car and say, take it back to Minneapolis for me with Ivan. Ivan was usually always with us, and him and Ivan would tour on back to Minneapolis, and Ric Flair would be at the Minneapolis airport the next morning with my caddy. I brought a brand new Eldorado Cadillac, man, brand spanking new, and he was always there on time with the thing washed, the gas tank filled up, and it was funny. And I even had Ric Flair believing that I was one of the real Graham brothers.
We're real. That Eddie and Jerry were like your real brothers?
Huh?
That Eddie and Jerry are like real brothers?
I told him that. Yeah. And he said, "Wow, that's interesting." Funny.
I want to make mention of this real quick because we got an email about this. Mark Lawrence is now, these are the two announcers of World Class back in the early 80s. He's now a Methodist minister, which I actually knew that. And Bill Mercer is doing syndicated radio based out of Dallas that's heard on some AM stations. All these That's interesting. Billy, before we go to the next call, I want to ask you, how's Valerie doing?
Oh, Valerie's in Florida, in Tampa right now. Her brother's very ill, has cancer, and, he's 44 years old, and I'm sorry to say, but the kid is not going to make it, and she's down there helping her sisters and her mom tend to her brother, but other than that, she's doing real good. She's holding up fine.
Because, I think of her a lot because, she's really had a hard life. I mean, because I think it's almost harder on the person you're with than even on yourself when they see someone, in so much, probably it's hard on yourself too, with all the pain that you've been through and everything like this over the last, what's been 13, 15 years.
Married
and then,
23 years, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, 23 years we've been married.
No, but I mean, like from the period from say like the mid '80s when your hips started going and you really started getting the major health problems.
Right, and the major drug problems.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, she was there helping.
Well, that would have actually been going back almost to the beginning.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Because I remember when you had one or two overdoses in the late '70s, early '80s, right?
Exactly, and two that were recorded that I went to the hospital on and had my stomach pumped, and it was so ironic. This is so weird. At that time frame, Jimmy Snuka was there, and he shot a huge angle with Ray Stevens. We'll talk about that when you do Ray Stevens, a great angle.
That was a real famous angle, the one that turned Jimmy Snuka babyface in New York.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And but this is so weird, man. We were booked in Worcester, and I left Manhattan about 3:00 in the morning to drive up to Worcester because it was too loud at the hotel. And a lot of noise. Guys were making a ton of noise. I wanted to get some sleep, so I got to Worcester. And on that card, the next night in Worcester, I was booked in the main event with Snuka. And lo and behold, that morning, I drug overdose, and I throw a handful of pills down my throat, and I go across the street to McDonald's and got some hamburgers and egg McMuffins, brought them back to the room, started eating, and my eyes rolled over my head, and I passed out. And Valerie just froze. She was only at the time, a 19, 20-year-old kid, well, a little older at that time, 23, 24, whatever. And she called it the desk, down at the desk, and thank God the woman who was on duty was a RN. She was working in a motel as a part-time job, and Valerie said she got over my stomach, straddled me, and was beating on my chest, beating and saying, "You're not going to die, you're not going to die, you're going to live, you're going to live." And sure enough, man, she beat the crap out of my chest until the paramedics got there, and that's when I had an out-of-body experience. I saw myself being twisted on a gurney down the stairs, winding my way down the stairs on the gurney, and I never believed in out-of-body experiences until it actually happened to me. Oh, hey, Dave.
Yes.
Before we get to the calls, can I just say I really want to extend my condolences to Johnny Valentine's wife, And,
oh yeah, absolutely.
I really do. And as a matter of fact, I'm not plugging my website, but somewhere there's hundreds and hundreds of pictures on my website, and somewhere my webmaster Steve Slagle told me last night that he's got a shot of Johnny Valentine and I working together on the website. And, I would just encourage the listeners and the fans and the visitors to your site just to go to www.superstarbillegraham.com and just check out the plethora of photographs and text. And do me a favor. This isn't a plug. I don't want the glory for myself. Write Steve Slagle, my webmaster, for doing a tremendous job of putting this website together on his own, and just give him a good word of encouragement and thanks, because he did all the work. I didn't do a thing. I did all the work 15 years ago. He did all the work today, so I just wanted to put that in there to really encourage folks to look at the site a little bit, and then send Steve Slagle an email and congratulate him on his good and superior work.
Okay, I want to also make mention that we were actually scheduled on Tuesday to have Terry Funk on, but because of Johnny Valentine's funeral is Tuesday, so we're not going to have Terry. In fact, it's actually right about the same time as our show. So we're going to try to reschedule that probably for whenever, maybe the next week or something. So Monday and Tuesday we will not have a guest, and then we got full the rest of the week. Let's go to Kevin in New York. Kevin, you're next up. Kevin.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Doing good.
The man of the hour, the man of the power. This has been like a dream of mine to talk to you.
Hey, well, I'm glad we finally got to talk. What's your name?
Kevin.
Kevin?
Yeah, I seen you. I remember when I was 16 years old in the Utica Memorial Auditorium.
Oh.
And it was amazing. You were against Butch Reed, and when your music came on, I went wild.
Oh, so that's late in the career.
That was late in the career. That's after my comeback.
Yeah, your comeback. It was unbelievable. I stood up on a chair, and it was like your eyes met mine, and you took your hand out, and we shook hands, and I flexed for you, and you threw your shirt at me, and I got trampled on. Somebody else got it. Story of my life. But it was great to see you and to come back. And then I was heartbroken a couple months later in Syracuse when you had to when you did the shot where your career was over as far as a wrestler. That bothered me tremendously.
Yeah.
He was.
It all comes to that, Kevin. It all comes to an end. Everything comes to an end. And I actually wrestled way past my time allotted to me to wrestle. After I got my hip put in, I know other guys, like the original Sheik, I believe, had a hip replacement and wrestled, did well. But I should have never wrestled with a total hip replacement. And
the doctors told you not to, right?
Oh, yes, Dr. Dorr, my world famous doctor in Los Angeles, said, do not wrestle, because if you wrestle, he says, I'm telling you, you're going to be back in my office 4 years or less from the date I'm telling you now, and I'm going to be putting a new hip in you. And he was exactly right on. 4 years almost to the day, I was back in the hospital, and my femur, the stem of the replacement that goes down your femur, was loose and wobbly, and I was in excruciating pain. And he told me, he said, this is the last one. He said, if you go back to me, go back to wrestling, you'll never come back to me, because I'm not just going to keep putting hits in you for the fun of it.
Right.
So, I did do that.
I only got a couple more things I'd like to say, but I'd like to say that it's, back when I was in high school, too, that was like the pinnacle of your comeback, and I drove my parents crazy. I'd make tie-dyed shirts, and I'd buy them all, and all that. And I know Donnie Lawbell out here. Donnie Lawbell lives kind of close to me. I'm a big fan of his. Excuse me?
Yeah, he lives near Donnie Lawbell.
For Evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, Donnie Lawbell, yeah, he was here. And, I've always wanted to get an autograph, like a picture of you or anything, and I own ExtremeAttitude.com, and I do some clothing for fitness, and I'd like to send you a shirt out sometime, in honor of you, because, you're really the hero of my life to get me into bodybuilding and to make me want to strive to be the best. And I want to give something to you, as a tribute to you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Do you, do you want me to keep this or autograph for this? Do you autograph the shirt and send it back to you?
Oh, no, I want to give you a shirt for me to you.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Someday. I'm on ExtremeAttitude.com. It's good workout gear, like Nike and that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. It's very kind of you.
How would I send that to you? Just on your website,
Yeah, on the website. Yeah, use the address on the website. That'll do it.
Okay.
All right, thanks
That'd
a lot.
Be great. Take care, Superstar.
Thanks. Good talking to you.
Yep, bye-bye.
Okay, let's go to Joe. Joe, you're up next.
Superstar, how are you doing today?
Oh, real good, brother. Real good.
I got to tell you, it's great, you listen to people like this, because then they always talk about when they started and what age they were, and it's true. I was 14 years old, and the first time my father took me to Madison Square Garden was you and Bruno in the rematch with Gorilla Monsoon as the referee.
Oh, yeah.
You only had the belt about 2 months. You were taking on Gorilla, then you took on Bruno, then you had the rematch. And, it's funny. I'm 36. I've got kids and the whole 9 yards. I can remember every main event you had. I saw you against Putski the next month. You had 2 with Dusty with the Bull Rope.
Mil Mascaris.
Right.
No, but then it was Peter Maivia, then it was Mil Mascaris, and then it was Baglin.
Yeah.
Billy, tell him about Mil Mascaris.
Yeah.
Let me bring up the name Mil Mascaris. That was the only guy that would not, and I'm stressing would not, do a job any way, shape, or form
for the world champion in Madison Square Garden
in history. And I was the guy. Dave Meltzer verify this, I maybe only pinned 2 guys in the whole year that I was champion. Maybe 3 guys I actually pinned. But I had to do the deal for Mil Mascaras, who is a personally nice guy, a very nice guy. But the guy would not sell. It was like working with the Statue of Liberty. The guy does not know the meaning of selling. And how do you inflict pain on a man, and that man, full of pain, tries to show his pain to Madison Square Garden with a mask covering his face. You can't see the pain on the face, brother. So it was tough. Those were 2 back-to-back matches that I wish I would have never had to gone through. I gave everything and received 0.
And 1 month later, that's when you dropped it to Backlund.
And the month later, I dropped it to Bobby.
Now, out of all those other guys, who was your favorite one at the Garden? Because I'm sure the Garden sticks out in your mind. You've had Maivia, you had Dusty, you had Putski, you had Bruno.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, the biggest pop came when we changed the title in Baltimore, and I came back into the Garden as the new champion unknowingly to 99% of the fans in Madison Square Garden that I had already beaten Bruno and taken the belt somewhere else. And I came out there with that belt around my waist. Those people went berserk. And Bruno came out as the challenger in New York. And I'm telling you, the pandemonium was so loud, the screaming was so loud that to do our high spots, I had to yell at Bruno. And he almost had to yell at me to get over the volume of noise in the building. And that was one of my most tremendous experience of, a crowd pandemonium going crazy. Man, their hero had lost the belt, and it was a stunner. It was stunning. But that was my favorite, probably my favorite match. But my favorite opponent would have been Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. And brother, let me tell you something. When we did, I think we had 2 shots in the card, and I can't remember if both of them were for the belt or not. Meltzer will know.
Yeah, the bull rope was the second one.
Was the bull rope for the belt?
The bull rope, I don't know. I don't know if the bull rope was for the belt, but it was 2 in a row.
Nevertheless, when they introduced that we went in after that match, after our first match, Dusty Rhodes and I went back into the locker room, and I think Dusty got juice, or both of us got juice.
Oh, yeah.
He came over to the hillside and said, Vince, let's bring this back with a Texas bull rope match. And he says, I guarantee you we'll sell it out. And Vince, right there on the spot, and of course I agreed, right there on the spot, Vince said, okay, next month, Texas bull rope match, man, sell out.
Incredible.
That's it.
It was a great string. It was a great string that you had there. And the Bruno one, it's funny, I didn't think about it till just now. You talk about, the mainstream media for wrestling in this day and age. I tell you what, when you came back with Bruno, you're right. When it was the Monsoon rematch with the referee, I still have it somewhere buried. Daily News, full page. I'm talking a full page, split in half. It was like tail of the tape with you and Bruno and the whole 9 yards. That the city was absolutely, there was mainstream media. Warner Wolf back in the old days on Channel 7 talking about it, and you guys really did light it up. I tell you what.
Oh, yeah, let me tell you a quick story, because I know we're running out of time, but this has to do with New York. I was always commuting back to Phoenix to thaw out and lay in the sun out in the desert. And my second or third match with Bruno, I left Phoenix, and by the time we got to New York City, JFK was getting ready to shut down. It was a blizzard, snowstorm, ice storm, hurricane, monsoons, everything all in one. And our plane was the last plane to land, man. They were even closing LaGuardia and Newark down. And I was on top in the Garden, and the headlines in the New York Times or Post or whatever it was the next day said the only game in town, brother,
True.
At Madison Square Garden. It was something to see. It really was.
Superstar, I'm going to let you go. I just want to ask you to do me one favor.
Yeah, man.
Say it. The man of the hour. Go ahead, say it.
Oh, yeah, the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour.
You are the man. Thank you very much.
You
have yourself a good.
You, man.
Take care, buddy.
Well, so if you ever want to know where catchphrases started, it was either that one or maybe Buddy Rogers. I'm not sure. What was Buddy Rogers? Was God, I forgot. No, I don't even remember. But I watched some of his stuff, and he had his catchphrases too. Now, did you ever bump into Buddy? Well, I know you met him because I was around you. I was around you with Buddy Rogers once.
And Buddy Rogers booked Florida for a while I was down there. A little later on. But he didn't do a very good job. He was the old school, and Florida was definitely high-tech finishes, you know. And it just didn't work out.
Let's go to Tom. Tom's in Texas. What's going on?
Hi. I believe Buddy Rogers said, like, to a nicer guy, it couldn't have happened to.
It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. That's what he used to say, right? Yeah.
Billy, big fan of yours. I was just wondering, it's pretty late in the show, but I was wondering, did you ever party with Ray Stevens or either him or Andre the Giant? Do you have any stories about him?
No, I really wasn't a partier. I really didn't drink. I just took a lot of drugs and...
just stayed in your room?
You know, pardon me?
Did you just stay in your room, or?
Yeah, I just more or less, after the matches were over, I became a recluse.
Uh-huh.
And occasionally I'd go down and visit with Andre in New York and eat with him. And he was the only one that you could break the kayfabe rule with. Because everybody loved him, and it didn't matter if you sat down and had dinner with Andre the Giant. But no, I didn't party with any of the guys because I was just kind of a loner, and it just didn't happen, you know. So that just wasn't me.
Right. One final question. I was wondering, I believe you said when you were on Donahue, when you were having one of your hip replacements, like the doctor, I think you said it was due to the steroids, like took out like a softball size wad of something?
Dead bone.
Dead bone, yeah.
Dead bone.
And that was that attributed directly to the steroids?
Yeah, steroids and trauma, and probably 90% steroids because I used steroids for a prolonged use of time. I used heavy doses. I used preparing for the 1975 Mr. America contest, taking 30 Dianabol a day plus injections, and so it shut off the blood supply to the hip and causes the bone to die. And the doctors actually called this avascular necrosis is the proper name, but they actually call it the death of a bone. Blood supply getting into the bone joint, and it crumbles, man.
And that was 25 years ago?
85.
So 20 years, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Just imagine what people are using today.
Oh, yeah, you imagine.
Yeah, I know, because I mean, like some it's you know, a lot of the stuff they're using now. I mean, it wasn't even invented in your day.
Oh no. Even though some of the stuff in our day was pretty potent stuff, but you know, it's altogether a different story now.
You know, Billy, you know, because I know that you're pretty big of a bodybuilding fan. I don't know how big you are of it now, but I mean, just when you go to the newsstands, there are so many guys now that are. You know, like when the day that we're talking about, you know, the pumping iron days, when, you know, you can mention names like Frank Zane, Ed Corney, and you knew all of these guys, and they all had they all had different physiques, and it was always like you know, you were comparing apples and oranges. Now it seems like there's like 20 guys, and they're all just gigantic, you know what I mean, and ripped.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, like, you know, like, I mean, they're just too huge to be humans. I mean, like, even Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, couldn't compare just from a size perspective. I mean, in many ways, I think to a general person, I think that most people think that his physique is more pleasing than these guys that are, you know, 5'9" and 260 ripped, but for the density and everything like that, you know, the stuff that they have now. I mean, it's almost like these, and also I think it's one of the reasons why, you know, bodybuilding is so cultish, because I think the average person no longer can relate to it anymore.
Oh, it's too far out there. These guys are so freaky that it defies description. And especially the women. The women.
Oh, the women. Oh, my God.
They're monsters. I feel sorry for these poor women. But, you know, they are taking, I don't know what they're taking. And I do watch. You ask me if I do. When ESPN comes by or something else, a show comes by, I watch a bodybuilding show. I enjoy it. And, but, God, the density, the muscle density, and it looks like they're wrapped in is a piece of toilet tissue. Their skin is so thin. It's phenomenal. And I don't know what kind of price they're going to have to pay for that. You know, if they pay a price. I don't know.
Yeah. We are totally out of time. I want to thank everyone who called in. And, Billy, I want to thank you. And Al's going to be calling you up soon because we're going to do a show in the next couple of weeks on Ray Stevens. And we'll tell everyone all about I'll learn a lot about Ray Stevens, even though I grew up watching him. But I'm going to be real interested in some of these stories as well. We're going to probably get Bobby Heenan and some people like that on as well. So, Billy, we'll be talking to you soon. Good luck with finishing up your book. I can't wait to read the rest of it. The last thing I read was the AWA stuff, and it was the best chapter so far.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Thanks a lot for having me on, Dave.
Okay, it was great talking to you.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, I want to remind everyone that I want to thank everyone for joining in. We will be back. We'll be talking about Backlash, which will take place Sunday night, here Monday at 5, and catching up on all of the current wrestling news.